Okay, so basically we're live now.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Basically, should I start right now, I guess? Or should I get some more insights about
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's meetup. If you can listen me, please reply via comments. Okay, thank you. Thank you for letting me know. We have around 14, 15 people tuned in right now. Let's wait for a couple of more minutes and then we will start. In the meantime, just to make it interesting this time, what I have done is included a few quiz questions. So I'll be showing you a few questions and let's see who can answer correctly. You can answer via comments. Okay. So I'm sharing my screen and let me know when you can see my screen. Can you all see my screen? Okay, so we'll do one question for time being so that more people can turn in and then we'll move on with the talks. So the first question, you have to reply via comments. Let's see who gives the correct answer. So here goes the first question. Which of these environment variables will not return a Boolean for env function call? So we have four options, 1, 2, 3, and 4. You have to tell me which of these will not return a Boolean when you use env function in Laravel code. I'm waiting for correct answers. Let's see. So nearly everyone is saying 3. Any other answers apart from 3? Okay. False is string, that's right, but when you use it in a .env file and when you call env function in Laravel code, that string is converted to a Boolean. The correct answer here would be the last one, number 4. That will give you an empty string in Laravel. So when you write env requires underscore validation, it will give you an empty string rather than a Boolean. However, the first 3 options, all 3 of them will give you a Boolean. The first one will give you a Boolean false. The second one will give you a Boolean true. The third one, service is enabled, it will also give you a Boolean false. You can try this and see how it goes. Okay, so now we'll be starting with the first talk, and the first talk is by Alex Renoki. I'm adding him to the stream now. Hey, Alex.
Hey.
So Alex is from Eastern Europe, and he is the author of a popular open source package called as Hedge, which is used for social authentication. And today he is going to walk us through that package and also explain us how the social authentication works in Laravel. Okay,
Yeah.
Alex, it's all over to you now. Thank you.
Well, I can make a small. It's actually called Hey. It's coming from a Germanic language. Maybe some Indian accents can make it look like it's hedge, but yeah, it's Hey. And today I'm going to explain how Hey can actually help you do less work on integrating social providers coming from Socialite. So to start off, I'm Alex, as my name implies to. I'm working mostly with Laravel, AWS, and VGS. Currently, I'm not pursuing any university. The last diploma I got is the high school diploma. So what I'm trying now to do in my life is to chase my dreams. And even if you are somehow in this stance, you can always chase your dreams. And I'm working mostly on open source packages, including Laravel. Now, we're going to get a small diving into what this package actually does. And later we'll see how to integrate it in your Laravel project, how to write tests, and you'll see how easy it is to just extend the class, and basically everything comes naturally. I mean, you can create new accounts, you can log in existing accounts, you can link and unlink providers from your users or any other authenticatable classes. So it's really easy to customize everything at the controller level. You avoid a lot of mistakes like repeating yourself. You can have many projects, and for some projects you might require to write the same logic all over again, which is pretty bad. I mean, you can find a bug and it's going to take a while until you find the resolution, how to apply it in more packages. It can differ, but once a mistake can be found, it's easy. You just have to upgrade the package using your composer file or your composer CLI. Now, why considering and when to consider Socialite? Especially before diving in, you must note that if you are willing to push this into production, you must be aware the fact that you are working with people data. And beside the fact that it's much easier for users to authenticate, to make sure you get valid users, you usually have to comply with some regulations. For example, GDPR in the EU, or privacy policies at the company level or the project level. It can be many things. And usually these socialite providers do want to keep with them some kind of transparency on your data and how do you move data, how to they appreciate a lot if you spot the mistakes and if you report, for example, security breaches. Now, I'm going to go back in the code. So this was some kind of introduction on the package. Now, it's not pretty much complicated. It's going to be explained in simple terms. So for example, let's make this a little bit big. I have set up a project. You can find the project on my GitHub page. I haven't mentioned it, but you can find it on my Twitter page. It has been set up just to serve as a demo for this meetup. So let's press to the demo gods and everything will work fine. So first of all, we're going to obviously check the README, the documentation of this package. You're going to see a lot of information about how to install it, how to publish the files. You're going to find some edge cases. You can find basically it's everything. Everything is really detailed, and you can always refer to the documentation because it's much deeper than that. Today we're going to show it really quick and how to do it and how to test it more importantly. So after you have installed the package, you will basically need...
Alex, sorry to
Yes?
interrupt. Can you please increase the font size of your browser window and the code window?
Sure. I hope
Thank
the font is right for the editor. I really hope.
No, just a bit more. A bit more, please.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter what happens here. It will matter more what happens in the test project. I have opened up here a Laravel project. Maybe this is what it actually should be shown. So basically, you just need a trait that will include some functions like relationship and everything that's needed. You can use them because they are public. You're going to need some migrations. Obviously, these migrations can be modified, and they can include some more data you can attach to the social provider user that's attached to your actual user. Now, as I said, it's really easy to include the controller in your project, because all you have to do is just to extend this controller. I mean, inside the controller, you can find some great code here that will actually make you integrate the social register and login without having to buzz off really on this and that, and to clutch and speed up your development process. Now, obviously, you can by extending you can replace any of the functions. You can, for example, I don't know, maybe you want a stateless socialite redirect, and everything you have to do is to copy the original ones and paste them and just add stateless to them, right? Let's back here, stateless, and everything will work pretty fine. I mean, you just modified what the socialite redirects and how it retrieves the user. Now, you might have seen that in this place you should whitelist social providers. That's because the routes are accepting any kind of provider, and you must stop any provider that isn't allowed, isn't implemented, or something like that. So it's going to be pretty easy to configure your controller to make everything you want. Obviously, you might need the routes that it can be defined any way. You just have to make sure it keeps the provider name and it redirects right. It uses the right controller and the right method. Now, this is only the top of the iceberg, to say. This is because it can, according to documentation, it includes much more details, like how to handle post-authentication, post-registering hooks. I mean, you can implement custom code in that. You can handle errors, for example. You can redirect after one link and just to just run the data, the business logic. Not run the data, to run your business logic before redirecting to after an link, for example. Now, for this kind of implementations, obviously the package has already been tested. So you will need to learn how to test your Socialite implementation. For example, maybe we can replace this redirect after running method. And if you want, basically you can run any code here. And you want to test this bit of code here. I'm not actually going to write the code because I can think of an example really fast right now. But if you want, per se, to test any kind of code here, you will need to write unit tests that reflect, or obviously not unit tests, but feature tests that will reflect the behavior and you can test it. So for this easy testing method, everything you should know is to use the mocks. By mocking, you're creating some kind of class. This is a bit more advanced, but basically you can create a class and make it return something when you call a method from that class. So for example, we create a mock for the Socialite user. This is the user that is being used by the GitHub. Now, the method callers here, I mean, it's an easy way of testing it. You can do it however you want, but this is some kind of example. So every time the Socialite users gets called with getID, getNickname, as usually using Socialite, you can make it return something. And in this case, we're going to make all the methods return something by using the method callers, I mean, iterating through them. And every time it expects any method, will return the actual return. I mean, when you call getID, it will return 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth. Now, this is actually for the Socialite user, but it also has a getRow method, and this method is plainly used for the other methods. Now we're going to make this another mock with the getRow, and finally we can create a provider. This time the provider is the GitHub provider, or any kind of provider, as you can see in this method, because you can call it with any kind of provider. Now, every time you call the user, so this method is used in the Socialite. If you remember, you can call Socialite driver user, and every time it calls, it will return our user. So everything is fine. Now you just have to make the Socialite class on driver method to return the provider, and everything's fine. I mean, we just have to replace the Socialite injected instance into the container, and now everything you have to do is to actually just jump in. You just write this mock Socialite facade. You have your provider, and you just have to call the callback. You don't have to go through the redirecting. So when you do that, you're expecting, okay, it's a status of 302. It's a full, it's a permanent redirect, and we can see by test that asserting no, actually this passes. Our user has an account, and the first social matches the Socialite user that we created just by mocking. Now, if you run the tests, you can see clearly that they pass. I'm not sure if they really pass. I mean, they passed a few days ago. Yeah, maybe something changed. I'm not really sure. Yeah, this demo was kind of messed by these tests, but yeah, I can assure you that this test passed. Maybe somewhere just got bit. Maybe it was because of implementation. It just again. There you go. Now it passed. So yeah, this is how you actually implement social redirection, how to create accounts using Hey, and yeah, that's basically everything you must know in order to test and implement this package into your project.
Thank you, Alex. So now, if anyone has any questions, now is the time to ask, please. Anyone has any questions for Alex?
Yeah, maybe I went pretty quick through all of the features, but most of them are in the documentation. So yeah, you can find me on Twitter anytime. So you can ask right away if you don't have any questions right now.
Okay, we'll wait for minute and then we'll move on.
Perfect.
In the meantime, let's start with a quiz again. Another question. Time for another question. I'll share my screen once again. So this was the first question. Now that I'm looking at the comments, I think Sneha answered it correctly. So great. Congratulations, Sneha.
Woo! Let's cheer this up.
So now the next question. Is there anything wrong in this code, in this routing code? Okay, in the meantime, Alex, we have a question for you from Neeraj. What's the
That
difference between your Socialite and Laravel Socialite?
Yeah, so basically, this is not Socialite. It's built on top of Socialite, and what it does, it actually writes the code that you need to write in order to, for example, authenticate the users with Socialite. You perhaps may want separate routes for your Socialite authentication. And by this, you don't need to write any code. You just have to extend the controller and point the route to your controller. So it's not the same thing.
Okay, thank you. We have another question coming in, Alex, from Achal. How can we implement Google login without using domain name URL?
I assume that Google uses, when you're trying to create an app, you need to give an URL that is a valid URL rather than the localhost one I have tried earlier. That's because this is their policy, and what you shall do is to perhaps modify the etc file. I guess in Linux it's the etc file. We have an etc file in Windows it should point to the localhost, but usually you might want to use, for example, Homestead, which is a Laravel environment. If you have macOS, you can use Valet. That's pretty much how to overcome this kind of issue. I mean, localhost and the localhost IP shouldn't mainly be used for the callbacks.
Here's another question for you, Alex. Is there any substitute for Socialite in Laravel? Are there any alternate packages available in Laravel which are
Uh,
similar to Socialite but not based on Socialite?
yeah, I mean, just the Socialite one, not my. Okay, so obviously, I don't think anyone reinvented the wheel by creating another package that matches Socialite functionality. Plus, you got plenty of providers provided by the Laravel community. For various logins, for example, Bitbucket, GitLab, some of them like GitHub and Facebook are already integrated. But I'm not sure if it exists. If it exists, I don't think it should be a good way to use it because Socialite is pretty much maintained right now.
Thank you.
Thank you too.
Then back to the quiz question. Do we have any answers coming in? This one is a pretty easy. What's wrong with this code? Okay, let me give you a hint. If you're thinking that something is wrong with this regex, then it is not. Line number 5 is correct. There's nothing wrong with that regex. Anyone? No guesses even? Line number 3. What's wrong with line number 3, Sneha? Okay, so the first comment I got is from Lil's Ash, variable dollar name question mark. So he's saying that dollar name is missing, and that's right, the correct answer. This function here, this needs to collect dollar ID and dollar name. Only then you can use dollar name in the closure. Okay, now let's move on to our next talk. Thank you, Alex. Thanks a lot. Thanks for your time and connecting with us.
Thank you too.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
So, guys, our next speaker is Nimit.
Hello.
Nimit is from Bangalore, and he's a full stack engineer and someone who likes to tinker with web technologies. In his free time, he likes to help open source communities, and currently he's building code with Code Puzzle. So
Right.
all the Code Puzzle offers and giveaways you see, it's because of Nimit. And Nimit today will be. So Nimit, it's all yours now. Thank you.
Sure. Sure. Thanks. I'd like to really thank Abbas for running these meetups. So I think I got in touch with Abbas a few months ago when I was just interested in Laravel and how I'm not able to find like active communities in Bangalore, which are like running these big meetups. And so I was just wondering why Laravel isn't picking up. So that's why I got in with touch with Abbas, and then I realized that Laravel is actually active and it's the community is there. So I was really happy, and yeah, I think that contributed a lot towards Code Puzzle as well, which I would cover up later on. So yeah, I'll start with sharing my screen. Um, I hope you're able to see my screen now.
Yes.
All right. So this talk is about importance of reading code, and more of a talk. It's more of my experiences that I have had with improving my code reading skills. Right. So before starting, I want to share what's ahead in this talk, what you can expect out of this talk. So first thing is my own story, what my journey has been as a developer with reading code. Then I want to share why should reading code why should it matter to you? And then I want to share like how you can actually get started with reading code, or if you already are doing those steps, then how you can improve it on the top of that. And the problem that is currently right now there, and I would then want to share like how you can read better code with Code Puzzle. And at the end, I have a small giveaway announcement. I think some of the viewers are already part of those giveaway, but I would like to share it to others as well. So stay tuned till the end of the talk. Right. I am Nimit Bhargava. As Abbas mentioned, I'm a full stack engineer and technical product manager, and I believe in constant learning. So yeah. Um, right. So why you should attend this talk, right? Because you want to get better at reading code, and with that you want to fix bugs faster. Like you get a bug at your work or the project you're building, and you want to quickly fix that. So that's why you should attend this talk. Then if you want to reduce time for development, right? So if you are building a feature, or if you're working on a company and you want to build a quick feature, right? So that also is one of the reasons that you should attend. Then get ideas to code better. So I've always found this analogy between reading code and reading a novel. They both makes you do something very similar. They improves your ideas to make better grammar or better sentences. In the same way, reading someone else's code can actually give you ideas to write, your own code better, or your own, implementation much better. Yeah. Yeah, so let's start. My story. So I've been very curious about development since the beginning, and I loved coding, and I still do, and it's something that gives me joy. So when I started my professional journey, I started to get a lot of enhancements. Like my managers used to really appreciate what I used to do, and they used to give me a lot of implementation and enhancement things to do. But later on, as I started developing, I found that my implementation, or the style of implementation, was getting stuck. Like, it wasn't getting evolved as a developer. It was getting stuck. I couldn't think of innovative ideas and things like that. And I ended up with things like a long if else, like they call it if else ladder. It's an anti pattern, or you can say a code smell. So at that moment, I was running out of these ideas, and I was writing kind of bad code. So now I understand. If when I look back, I understand that it's because of I wasn't aware of code smells. I wasn't aware of anti patterns in the coding. So yeah. So what I did then is that I started reading my colleagues' commits, or whatever they used to write. I used to read that. So that gave me a lot of insights to how they write, how they break down a problem, and how they even how do they even write commits. I think that's also one skill a developer should be very good at. So all of these things actually started making me become better. I started getting more ideas when I started looking at my seniors code, and when they used to refactor something, I used to ask them, why did you do that, and things like that. So this contributed to mostly, I would say, fairly all positive learnings. But then at the same time, there were some learnings which were not right. I mean, some of my seniors who were writing code were writing some anti patterns, and were writing some not good code as well. Like that actually happened. So that's how I actually started. Like, this was the starting point of my journey towards improving code reading skills. So I started improving my code reading skills from learning from other commits, other seniors developers commit, and things like that. So this was when I was in a company. But yeah, but I want to share like how you can improve. But before that, why should it really matter to you? Like, why should, as a developer, you should improve your code reading skills, or why should you even think about investing your time? So let me give you a scenario here. So as a developer, or as a programmer, when you're working in the day, your days is spent with a very less time is spent with you writing code, right? Most of the time, it's actually reading someone else's code, or your own code, or or in fact, it's just having communication around your own task. So your majority of the task is actually spent at code reading rather than writing the code, right? So it's majorly spent at reading your own code, or ability to understand someone else's code, right? So and when a developer joins a new project, or a company, or even changes a team in the company, they end up looking at a lot of new chunks of code base which they never saw, or they never saw those kind of patterns how they do it. So this kind of situation is a challenge for every developer when they join a new team. So you can say, like, onboarding to a team is like a challenge. It's kind of that. So yeah, why? Because of these points, like, because you want to, like, understand someone else's code much faster, and you want to be better at, like, when you join a new project, the time taken for you to adopt that project code base should be much lesser time. That's why. So then it comes like how you can improve, or how you can get started with reading code or improving. So so I was very curious, as I mentioned. So I really like the idea of open source projects. So I used to always think how I can start it. Like whenever I started my coding journey, like every blog, every article used to be like, hey, why don't you do open source? Like everybody talks about open source. So I had no idea about open source, and the only way I could read code was my own company's code. But when I started thinking how you can start reading code, I came across few steps that you can follow. So one of the steps is find an open source project. In the later slides, I will share how you can find an open source project that you can like. So here the point is that you can find, like you can find an open source project, and then you can kind of connect to any contributor or maintainer of that project and connect with them asking, you can drop them a message saying, hey, I'm looking forward to your this repository. Is there some task that I can do, or something like that? So kind of asking them for a task, or asking for their repository. So the first step is finding your open source project. The second thing I started doing was, after finding a couple of open source projects, I then started to read the repository. I started to, go through the repository. I started checking their issues, the PRs that are already there. That's what I started doing. So that kind of gave me an idea how frequent the development happened. Like you don't want to start working in a project where the last commit was, merged like 3 years ago. So, this kind of thing also started working out for me. Then the next step I usually do is I run that specific repository locally. Most of these repositories are very I think the core of open source development is that their documentation has to be amazing, else new developers won't be able to join. So they started. So the next point is to start running these repository locally. You can actually, even if you don't know any coding, or if you don't know any of these process, right? Most of these repositories are very well defined with the README. So they have a good README that you can read to install. And at times you can also find there's a file called contributions MD, contributions markdown, where there are steps for how you can actually contribute to open source. So all of those things can help you out. And once you have your local setup, then you can actually go ahead and pick up an issue. Here I'm talking about GitHub issues. So there are many ways to pick up GitHub issues. Like you can look out for tags. So there are tags like beginners tags or help needed, help wanted. There are multiple tags that you can check in the GitHub issues, and from there you can pick up a very small task. I would say. And when you pick up those small tasks, you want to you want to comment there, hey, can I pick up this task? Or you can say, hey, I'm starting this task, I hope it's okay, something like that. So that the maintainers can kind of assign you to that task. And then you kind of start reading the code base and things like that. But for example, if you're not able to understand, how to set up, or how does this route works, or my code is not working, then you can kind of ask the create like a issue over there and ask them these points over there. Yeah, and if you're able to do all of these parts successfully, then you can submit the PR and wait for the review. So this is kind of, one flow that that is there that I found, but there are some drawbacks here. One of the drawbacks is that when you are starting, you might be very interested in reading. You must be very interested in, writing your code right away, and you can't just wait for these things to happen. So in that excitement, a lot of developers lose motivation to start with open source. So for example, they most of them get dropped off when they are not able to understand any, how templating is working. For example, how templating is working for some project. So when you start doing it, it's very confusing, and you end up, giving up because you're not able to read the code well. You're not able to read the code flow well, and that leads you to drop off. And trust me, most of us developers actually drop off in that process, and that's why we don't get into open source project. That's why the barrier is there. So So yeah, even though the steps might look clear, but it all boils down to maybe reading code, how well you can read code. And if you can really do well, I think you can get into open source quite easily. So as I was talking about the problem, right? So with these problems, I wanted to look like, is there a kind of a solution that's present there which can teach me how to read code, or specifically, I would say, how can I read open source code? So with that, I started looking out. We found that most of the most of these applications and these platforms which helps you to become a better developer, they focuses on a very specific thing, which is just problem statement, where they would kind of give you this statement, and they would give you the sample input output, and you have to write the code from that. So the thing is that these problem statements are, as I said, these problem statements are provided, and developer has to submit these solutions. But these things do not really contribute to your realistic skill development of a developer. They just focus on just problem solving, and that only part. But there are many other things that a developer needs to do, like code reading, communication, task management. There's so many things that happen. So we found that those points are missing. So, and focus on code reading is completely absent. Like when we were doing like market analysis, we were checking like what we can pick up to learn to read code, to reduce that barrier for you to join, for you to start getting better at reading code. We couldn't figure it out. Like something like this, if it's available, like it kind of makes you read code, and you need to guess something, that kind of thing was completely missing in the market. So yeah, the problem is that developers wants to improve reading code, and current solution focuses on solving a problem. They don't focus on reading the code. And definitely real jobs requires to read code. I think a clear distinction between a junior developer and a senior developer is how much they have read code. Like this can be one of the parameter. Right. So if that's the problem, what could be the actual solution, right? So the actual solution could be, like an application that makes the developer read code in a way they can enjoy, right? They can have fun with reading code, and we don't want it to be, very long. We don't want developers to spend a lot of time in just reading code, and like that. So it's like a skill that should be practiced on your daily basis. Yeah, so here I come with reading code with code puzzle, and as they say in development, show me the code, talk is cheap. I would show you how to read code, and rather than just saying. So I'll share my screen. Just give me a moment. Feel free to ask any questions in the YouTube thread. I would be happy to help you out.
If anyone has any questions, please ask
Yeah.
now.
All right, so this is Code Puzzle, and our aim is just that you read and you keep on reading these things, reading open source code every day, and you level up as a developer, right? And we currently focuses, and we have support with Vue.js, PHP, Java. We have Laravel as well. So we have these puzzles, like open source puzzles we create from open source files from GitHub, and we kind of give it to users to do it. And yeah, and you can also create your own puzzles. Let me go and show you how it is. So you can log in with your GitHub. And if you're curious what it's made up on, it's actually made up on Vue.js, Beautify, and for the backend we are using PHP. We work with a framework called RCMS. It's an in-house framework, so that's what we are using. This is my profile. I would say that since we all are here for the PHP, so I will choose my language as PHP. We currently support 3 languages, so I would choose PHP and I would start, my puzzles. So when you start a puzzle, you would see like a pop-up coming up. This is actually the repository that this profile has been created from, and this puzzle has been created from. And all of these puzzles are, part of popular repositories. So no puzzle is like, so you won't be reading someone's code just like that. So you will be reading all experienced developers code, or code that is very popular, right? So with this you can actually start the puzzle, and here I think this would be a good chance for me. Just a moment, let me increase the font size here. So yeah, you can do that as well. Since everybody is watching from they can be watching from mobile. So yeah, I think this is code reading. So you can see there's a blank over here, and what I can do is I get click here, and I see a couple of options that can go inside it, right? So let me ask the audience, what could be the option here, like which will pass this, or what can go here. So if you comment in the YouTube chat, I would try it out live. So Om says files get contents. So let me go ahead and click that. Oh, that's great. It is successful. So yeah, so when your puzzle is successful, you get like a good GIF, because it's the world of GIF, and how, yeah. And with this, you can actually go ahead and click on read more. This will actually take you to the official documentation of file gets content. So for example, if you didn't get it correct, then you can read it. You can read about it, you can read so many things. So this is more of discovering. So now you can actually discover. And for example, if we didn't get any like answers at this point, then you can click on I don't know, and you get like a progressive hints kind of functionality, which kind of teaches you like it will kind of force you to think in the direction. It will not give you the answer, but it will kind of give you, this thing, and you can say I give up, and yeah, it will tell you the answer. You can go to next, and you can play again. So now this is the Laravel IDE helper. So I think the point of us going into Laravel more is Laravel is such a big community, and it's one of the biggest communities for backend framework. So yeah, we want to help developers getting on board into Laravel as much as possible. So with CodePuzzle, you can actually discover new repositories, and you can also find repositories where you want to contribute into, right? So let us start and say that there's one more cool thing that we have done. So for example, if you see this small blank, right? There's a whole code that comes, and this whole code actually comes from GitHub. So for example, if you're lost in the code, right? So you can always go to blank button, and when you click it, we kind of scroll you back, take you back to the blank. So blank comes back. So you can do it from any place, and it's here. So now you can actually click on the blank. So I'll give you a moment to read this, and I'll click on the blank. Yeah. So what should be the option? If you need to look back, I can open again. So if function exists, trait exists, and All right, so what if I don't know this? So I can click on I don't know, and I can click on tell me more. So now it says the review the implementation of is_trait function. So when you review, you find that you want to know more. And the missing function is invoked with a single argument. So which of them supports a single argument like that? From here, you can get more hint. The argument corresponds to the name of a trait. Maybe trait exists. Okay, so from the hint, I could figure out, the answer of it, and I could read it back and understand the code. With this, you can also give feedback if you really like a puzzle. If you don't like, you're free to show that you didn't like it. Yep, and you click on next. You can play as many puzzles as you like, but what we think is you should be playing small puzzles, but for you should be playing these small puzzles, but for regular days. You should not. So it's like a skill that you need to work on continuously. So yeah, that's our thing. I would switch back to my presentation. So yeah, now you can read PHP code with Code Puzzle. You can discover new open source repositories in Laravel, in PHP, and in the end, you can become a better developer. So I want to share that it's actually very, very easy to read open source code, right? And the developers just aren't aware of this fact. And if you start doing open source code, and if you start reading the open source code, your career, it will really help. It will be really helpful in your career and your growth. And it's definitely fun too. Trust me. Reading open source, contributing to open source is really fun. At times I feel that I should be 100% open source developer. Then and what Code Puzzle give you is like we give you like we ask you to solve only 5 puzzles a day. That would take you like 5 minutes of source code reading. And what we have understood it's very efficient for improving engineering skills. So if you can play and read these codes from many popular repositories, then your engineering skills will also improve. And in the end, we want to change the perception, right? So it's just the perception that open source code and reading code is quite simple and quite easy and fun. So yeah, let's go ahead and read open source code. With that, I want to share that Code Puzzle is accepting for the puzzles. So the puzzles you saw can be easily created from our platform. So if you are interested, we do have some, how do I say, we do have some freelancing opportunities with us. So you can you can mail if you're interested. You can send a mail at info@codepuzzle.app. Feel free to send a mail, even if you're not sure if you'll be a good puzzle creator or not. Just drop us an email, and yeah. So for freelancing, we would be having like hourly rate or something that I can share later. But yeah, it's paid. You won't be spending your time here. You would be like kind of working with us, helping out with us with these puzzles. So we are open, and if you're interested, info@codepuzzle.app, you should reach out to us. Yeah. Now the interesting part, the giveaway announcement. And as I mentioned that like couple of months ago, I came across Laravel communities in India, and I was really amazed by it and how much we can contribute to our communities actually reflects the quality of the software that gets popular. So with that, we want to say that we are very much interested in supporting these communities, and we want to provide in-depth Laravel course to 5 users. And so to join that, you can actually go to bit.ly/cp Laravel Nagpur. So with this, you can actually get into that course. that course giveaway, all you need to do in that is you need to click on apply button. Like for you, it should show start, and you play the 5 puzzles and you repeat for 8 days. So if you repeat for 8 days, you will be eligible for that lucky draw, and then you'll be part. Then like on 28th, we will announce those winners. So if you start from today, you will stand a chance to win this course. And we have these regular campaigns. So once you get into the system, you will start uh, winning these. A lot of people from Laravel communities in Gujarat and Maharashtra have won this. So we really encourage you to join this and share it to your friends, right? And just to give you like some past insights, so we had like I think we have given around like more than 20 Laracast 1 year uh, access to 20 plus people. So that's like really good. And for in-depth also we are doing that, and we have something really exciting that's coming in September. So if you join, you will start, with reading, you will start enjoying as well, right? And if you don't find, if you are not able to visit bit.ly link, then you can just go to code puzzle, sign up with your GitHub, and you can go to the challenge sections, the campaign section. Yeah, with this, I'd like to say thanks for listening to my talk, and yeah, understanding this. If you have any questions for me about reading code and how you can improve a code, and if you want to get better at something like refactoring, then you can ask questions, and I'll be free to answer all of them.
Thank you, Nimit. Thanks a lot.
Right. So if I don't get any like questions, I do have some miscellaneous slides, so where I can help developers to, like, which I said, like how you can find an open source project, how you can find an issue. I can give you a quick path to that.
So anyone has any questions for Nimit?
I would say meanwhile we are getting questions. I can go to the next. I can just touch on some miscellaneous slides where I can talk about like finding a new project, right? I think when we all are working in our companies, it's really difficult to figure out a project that you would want to do. But trust me, it's very easy. So let me show you this. Let me go to GitHub Explore. So actually, it's quite simple. You can just do, oops, explore GitHub, and it's quite easy. So you go to GitHub, right? You click on this Explore tab. So you'll see that there's another tab for trending. Just click on that. Um, and then you would be amazed to see how many new repositories that you will come across. Think about just PHP for now. So when I say PHP and you can see the trending is this month, then you would actually see the repositories that has been trending through this month with language PHP. So you can see that there have been 600 stars to Laravel boilerplate. So looks like it's a new upcoming repository. So you can click on it and see how it's working on, right? I think that's what I was talking, like just visit GitHub, click on explore, see trending, choose language and the period, and then you can figure it out. As I said that you can start reading the README. That's what will be very, very helpful. And I was also talking about contribution MD. So not all projects have contribution MD, so you might have to look around. Yeah. So if these are small projects, they might not have like contribution page for them, but you can see that you can directly drop a message to this user, and you can say, hey, I'm a PHP developer. Do you need any help? I can join, and boom, you are into open source. The next thing you know, you are open source contributor. You can see yourself somewhere in insights, and you can share this to your job perspective. So you can see, like if I do it in a month, you can see that these developers, and somewhere it also used to show you the contributors list. So you get your name in an open source contribution. So that's power of open source and how you can find new projects, right? But sometimes you can find projects and they might lead you to no issues. Like as I said, that you can find a new project and they have no issues. Then what do you do? Then for that, I have prepared for you. There are many ways to find these issues, right? One of them is you can just directly go to GitHub with for good first issues. With these, you can actually figure out, again, you can filter by language. You can say PHP. I don't know why PHP is not supported. Hmm. Oh, it's doing for the repositories. Yeah, let's ignore that for a moment. Let's just choose JavaScript. You can do the same from the search also. I'll share that later. Like if somebody requests. So from here you can figure out these issues. Like show alert of some kind of SSL validation can be disabled whenever the page fails because of SSL validation. So if you click on this link, usually these tickets or these issues have kind of good descriptions and good titles, which you can start from there. So it's quite simple. So one way is this, like you can go to this URL. Uh, and the second is goodfirstissue.dev. So it's kind of a place where you can find these good first issues here. Like you can find PHP, right? Uh, so you will see all the projects in PHP and they have like 9 issues, or WooCommerce has 10, open source good first issues. So you can see these issues. And trust me, there are people who are like looking for these issues. Whenever there's a new issue, people just start commenting, hey, I have done this, hey, I have done that. Like for example, this is 21 hours ago, and there's already somebody, you know, they have put it priority low, but you can now fix it. So it's your chance to become like a commerce contributor, and that's amazing part of open source, that you can be part of these. Then there's another site called First Timers Only, and I want to say that keep an eye on Oktoberfest. I think I didn't spell it right. It's K or something. Yeah, I guess so. It's Oktoberfest, which happens every year in the month of October, where you have to contribute in open source, and with that you get some freebies and things like that. So if you focus on, I would say these open source, I think Code Puzzle would be a really good place for you to start with, because the biggest barrier of getting overwhelmed seeing such a big code base will get easier for you. So if you start with Code Puzzle, that would be really cool for you guys. That's it from my side. I again want to say thanks to Abbas and Laravel community for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Nimit. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so if anyone has any questions for Nimit, one last chance. Otherwise, we'll move on to our last question, quiz question, and then we will close out. Okay, let me share my screen. So this was the last question. Let's see what's next. This is the last one. Let's see who answers first and correctly. How will you define the route for the following controller method? So just type out the single line, the way you will define the route for this, for calling that particular controller method. Anyone? I'll count to 10 now. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. I guess it will take some time to type it out. Okay, I'll wait for a moment. In the meantime, I would go back to my second question. There were a few people who answered it correctly. The first one I had highlighted earlier. So Niklesh was correct. Then Pankaj was correct as well. Shani was also correct. Faizan was correct. Here's what it should look like. The earlier number 2. Vita was correct. Okay. So invocable. So Shani, I need the route definition, the entire code, line code. So what I'm looking for is, let me show it to you actually. What I'm looking for is this. What will you write here? This is what I want. Okay. This is what I want to see. Okay, some answers are coming in. Fazan says route : get invoke / invoke will be the URL and show profile : class. Okay. Then Shani is also saying almost the same thing. Yes, these two are the correct answers. This. Actually, no. Sorry, I take my word back. Both Faizan and Shani are wrong. Neeraj is correct. Well done, Neeraj. Shani and Faizan, they forgot the ID parameter. We need the ID parameter in the URL. Otherwise, you won't be able to collect it in the controller method. Okay, guys. Thank you, everyone. Thanks a lot. As usual, we'll be doing our September meetup next month, and for that you can head on to, if you are interested in presenting a talk, please head on to bit.ly/laravel-ngp-cfp. Please submit your talks there. We are always on the lookout for speakers. New speakers are always welcome. You need not be a seasoned speaker. It can be your first time speaking for a meetup. That is perfectly fine with us. It can be any topic related to Laravel and web development in general. So please submit your talks at the given URL. Thank you once again, everyone. Good night.